Thank you for that intro. I am David of HIPAA for MSPs and Security First IT, and joining me is Donna Grindle of Carden. Good morning,
Hi, David.
Donna. Welcome to what is going to be our first video published of the podcast. So I guess it now makes it a vodcast.
Oh, jeez.
How about that?
I'm not gonna complicate anything by
So it's like
that.
Donna's like, you did enough to get me to do the podcast, and
Yeah,
now you're asking me to be on video. That's
yeah.
a little
I
much.
had to have my hair and makeup done.
Yeah.
That's so me.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And
anyway,
we even dressed the same today, accidentally.
that in and of itself is scary.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
but we did. We I wore a dress.
yeah. And it's a
That-
beautiful little black dress.
yep, it is.
That'll make people go to the video right there.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, so in
Yes,
today's show, we're going to be talking about things we've never talked about before. We're going to be talking about more enforcement, more ransomware, and more cyber news.
there is so much going on. I was trying to figure out what to leave out, and there are just too many. There's just too many. So we've got a lot to hit through and, not a lot of time to do it. Long way to go and a short time to get there, David.
All right, let's get into it. So we've had a lot going on. So we've had some alerts coming down from all kind of federal agencies telling healthcare to be on the lookout. We've got some settlement issues and all that happening. But before we dive into all that, let's hear the HIPAA Say What segment of the week.
There it is. So I chose this one specifically because I think a lot of people forget this or
Yeah,
may not even know it in the first place, which
yeah.
is under high tech. They added the ability for the state attorneys general to enforce HIPAA on behalf of their constituents.
Is you is, or is you ain't my constituents.
We're going to just be quoting all kinds of things now, aren't we? So the reason I bring this up is that in Kingston, New York, uh, the Shoprite Supermarkets Inc. and Shoprite Store, they were hit with violating HIPAA and the New Jersey Consumer Fraud Act in 2016.
Hmm.
They failed to properly dispose of electronic devices used to collect signatures and purchase information of pharmacy customers, according to the Attorney General of New Jersey. Now, let me tell you, the Attorney General of New Jersey, he is paying attention to
Mm-hmm.
what's going on. This is not the first time.
Yeah. How
Yeah.
many places do you know of that have pharmacies in them? Lots and lots.
Yeah. So whether it's the grocery stores, here it's Publix and Kroger and those, but this was ShopRite. And so they had these devices and they replaced it with newer technology. And then, as so often happens, what do we do with these?
Just throw them away.
That's what they did. Just threw them in the dumpster. You know, recycle electronics. There are tons of parts that
Hmm.
can be recycled and reused. Number one. Number two is I can assure you they are not compostable.
I'm gonna say in most areas it's not legal to do that with
I know,
electronics.
right?
Hmm.
Just throw them in the dumpster. So, and a lot of people say, well, it's New Jersey, but they didn't wipe them. They didn't do anything. They just unplugged it, tossed it in the trash. And we cannot do that. We
Somebody's like,
cannot.
but I did. I put Windex on them. I wiped them down good.
Yeah. But it's Wakefern is the big uh, company name that, there's always four layers of who actually owns anything anymore.
Hmm.
Um, but they had to settle. They settled with the attorneys general, and they also went on a corrective action plan. How about that?
Never heard of that before.
Never heard of that, but it's with the state, and I don't know. I think that the way the deal goes is that the state, OCR. I don't know that whether OCR like will come in after them or not. I don't think so, because the HIPAA stuff can be addressed by the state's attorney general. So I'm gonna assume that's a big no.
Yeah. That's like,
But
it's one of those double jeopardy questions.
I'm not ready for it.
Yeah.
And I wrote the notes. Why am I not ready? Oh, because I was half asleep. Uh, so they have a settlement for $235,000
Mm-hmm.
and a corrective action plan. And they say to put in data protection measures aimed at creating and maintaining a comprehensive security program to better safeguard PHI collected at Shoprite supermarkets that operate in-store pharmacies.
Yeah. It's worded quite well.
So I didn't go through the actual legal document like we usually do for OCR,
Mhm.
but I like the fact that here's the bullets. Sounds pretty familiar. Appoint a chief privacy officer.
Mhm.
Pretty sure that's really basic. Executing business associate agreements with the supermarkets, Union Lake, and each of its members that operate pharmacies. So, when you got these different businesses, somebody's a business associate and somebody's a covered entity.
Right.
Ensure that all the stores with the pharmacies cooperate,
I know it's hard, man. It's hard.
cooperative, designate a privacy and security officer.
Yeah.
That's how you
Again.
start the program, isn't it?
Mhm.
And provide online training for those officers on the privacy and security rules. Now, that I think is interesting, because a lot of times we're the only ones saying, you know what? The privacy and security officers need to have privacy and security officer training, not the same training that everybody else gets.
Yep. So
Thanks for adding your 2 cents.
I'm starting to wonder if he doesn't listen to the podcast, because these are things that we always bring up in the podcast.
Well, clearly the people at Wakefern do not. So we maybe that's what they need to do, is just put that in the agreements. You need to start listening every week.
Yeah. I think all of the corrective action plans should include listening to Help Me with HIPAA each week
That's great.
and documenting. So I'll talk to Roger next time
Document
we
it
are out.
as training. You cannot beat it
Mm-mm.
for adding it to your training list. Now, this is for our segment, the HIPAA.
Say what?
Hey, all right. This is your reminder that OCR is not the only one to consider the HIPAA police out there.
Mm-hmm.
You need to keep in mind that states now have authority to investigate and, uh, decide a settlement and a corrective action plan. So, for your information going forward.
Yep.
Right.
So if that wasn't enough to worry about, that there's more HIPAA police out there, there are several acronyms that have come out with another healthcare alert. Those
Yeah, I mean,
acronyms.
what is this? The third or fourth one this year that we've been talking about?
Yeah.
The CISA,
Yes.
FBI, HHS. This one did not include Interpol,
Mm-hmm.
which some of the international ones have. But this one, when HHS was involved, we went, "Er?"
Yeah.
Because that means it's healthcare specific.
Right. And this one is no different. And so,
Mhm.
and what it boils down to is there's been some aggressive targeting of healthcare.
Yes.
To me, means you're being targeted, specifically targeted, because we oftentimes say, Well, you just got caught up in a wide net,
Yeah,
and nobody was really coming after you. No, not only are you being targeted, but quote unquote aggressively being targeted.
right.
Mm,
And there's some very specific things that I don't think a lot of people, the headlines, it drives me crazy. The headlines all said targeting hospitals because so many people think healthcare means hospital.
right. Yeah. So all these smaller practices are like, whoo, good.
That is not what it says. It
No.
says hospitals and healthcare providers.
Yeah.
But there's an article on health info security that took it and broke it down a little bit more. Of course, they were focused on the hospital part, but the tactics of the group waging attacks on the hospitals, as they say,
Hmm.
but they are identifying the specific gang or group. And really, I mean, when there's I think this one they said, well, they called it Eastern European, and then later it said Russian. So we'll just leave it at that. But UNC 1878 is the
Yeah.
group.
I thought they might be from University of North Carolina at first.
And
I
and yeah, you being in South Carolina, you got to be leery of them.
know UNC. Oh man, in Tar Heels.
But they say this started in September, which
Yeah.
would make sense that, if they're just starting out and they're testing everything and you see one and then you see two, and they are actively targeting hospitals, retirement communities,
Hmm.
and medical centers.
Yep.
So as they point out, in the midst of this global health crisis, they are demonstrating a clear disregard for human life.
Yeah. And I don't know that I've ever seen specifically mentioned retirement communities
I
before.
don't recall that either.
So that's very interesting in and of
Well,
itself.
it's those are the ones that are going to be the most sick. So the hospitals are going to have them. The retirement communities have the most to worry about.
Hmm.
Um, and then of course the medical centers, and you know, we all know that you could classify a ton of different things as a medical center, but your average office is part of that because even if you think, oh, I do eye care, you
Hmm.
know what? They're pretty sure that you're connected to something they could use to go through you. And they also know you'll likely be a good target because the entire healthcare industry is, you know,
A mess.
stretched.
Yeah.
You know, either they're trying to catch up because they were shut down, or they're trying to manage the end of the year. All the elective stuff usually will happen towards the end of the year when people have paid their deductibles.
Hmm.
And so you got that, you got the pandemic, you got trying to catch up from the lockdown, you've got misinformation all over the place about COVID, and now the cyber criminals go perfect storm. Boom.
Yeah. I do wonder though, in light of the recent events with ransomware and healthcare and actually costing a life, if they're not actually trying to do that. Because when you look at,
To prove that you should pay them.
well, yeah, you look at retirement communities and stuff like that, you're already looking at people that are at higher risk. And if there is a ransomware event in a
Hmm.
community where people are already at a higher risk of medical issues and death, it almost looks to me like they're trying to specifically cause loss of life.
That's terrifying.
It is. It's very terrifying.
So, uh, but I'm sure that we won't know that just yet.
No.
They have not stated that, but then they rarely state their intent um, until the damage is done.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's also a money grab,
Yeah. Oh,
because
big time.
yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about the money's increasing in just a second, but I know that it's a money grab, but I think when you start looking at retirement communities, specifically, I think it's more than a money grab. It starts becoming a little more malicious and dangerous, I believe.
Oh, yeah, in so many ways,
Mm-hmm.
especially those communities. We have one nearby that, is you can move in anytime, and it's got all the different, you can progress all the way up to where you need assistance
Mm-hmm.
to a certain level before you even have to leave the community. And those are quite popular for many people because at least then you're in familiar surroundings. You got, your friends are still around. And those communities, particularly this one here, it was featured during the lockdown because they had done such a good job. And they had staff committed. They locked down and stayed there. They didn't go home. They didn't leave. They moved in, and people would bring things and sit it outside in this, and they had quite a system set up. If somebody hits their computer system, though, they don't see that, and healthcare people, they're doing these incredible jobs caring for people and protecting them, but they're going after the computer systems now. And you're right. I mean, it's almost inevitable if
Mm-hmm.
this keeps up that there will be loss of life directly related to it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's going to be sad to see.
Yeah.
And
And
we have a local, actually yesterday, we have a county government piece that handles aging people. So it's the Council on Aging,
yeah,
or
yeah.
not in my specific area, but right outside of my area. And they called yesterday with a security incident.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, and it was, the normal phishing email and somebody fell for it type deal, but the way it was handled was bad.
Oh.
And by the time it
Are
got to
you are
us,
you are you ratting them out?
I don't know what I'm going to do
'Cause
yet, but you know, the, what the way it happened was that it was nearly a week later after the incident before um, the C-suite people even heard about what happened, and so they called us in a panic.
oh, yeah.
And fortunately, come to find out, so far in our investigation, it's not as bad as it could have been. It's not near as bad as it could have been.
Well,
But
that's awesome.
but
Woo.
when we talk to them about cybersecurity, which we've done before, we get the pushback of, well, we've got to jump through all these hoops because we're a government entity, and you've got to have all these different contractual numbers with all these
Yep.
things. I mean, it's just a mess. It's a ton of red tape. And then it's like, well, we have to go with the lowest bid and all this. And I'm like, you cannot address these issues with the lowest bidder.
No, it's unfortunate. Well, and we talked about this before when recently when we were discussing the Secretary of State's, I think, the meeting that the Louisiana representative talked about after they got hit with ransomware, that you have got to have better security support
Yeah.
and that you have to vet the ones that you're using, because I think those cases came through the MSP that they were using because everybody used the same one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's
So,
tough. I mean,
yeah,
if you thought buying a computer was hard, understanding all the lingo, try going out and paying for cybersecurity from somebody, because
yeah,
everybody out there is like, we're the best.
yeah, yeah. Nobody's
Then
going to
you-
tell you, well, we're kind of good.
yeah. And then when you look
Yeah,
at it, you're like, but here's the thing is it does not matter the tool. What matters is the person holding it, because you can hand me a hammer and
yeah.
I might be able to build a doghouse. Maybe you
That
hand
might stay up.
it might. It'll look like butt, but it might look like a doghouse. But you hand a carpenter a hammer, the same one, and dude, they will build you an immaculate
Oh,
house.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
not the tools. We all use similar tools in this industry. It's all about who has the tools and do they know how to use them properly.
You're absolutely right. Great analogy there, David.
Thank you, ma'am.
So, according to the NBC News reports, it last week when all this came out, 20 facilities already been hit. There's no telling how many have been hit, since then, because you think it started in September.
Mm-hmm.
News came out at the end of October. 20 facilities. Do some math, and those are the ones they know about. So those are the ones that are getting reported to the FBI, and this is why you report things to the FBI. They have a way of doing this.
Mm-hmm.
You go to the ic3.gov, I think, site, and you report it there. If you're hit, you need to report it so that they can track what's going on. You're not
Yeah.
going to be investigated by the FBI. They're going
Yeah.
to try to help you,
I was gonna
and
say,
they're trying to catch them.
if anything, they're gonna offer some assistance. So
Yeah.
jump in there and take that for sure.
So that brings us into all of the stories that we've seen about the ransomware, because it's just been prolific as we've moved through this year.
Mm-hmm.
The further it just drags on, this year's never going to.
2020 is gonna last forever.
I know. Well, it feels like it was yesterday it all started, but at the same time, it's like, please, I want to the other side. Just get me to the other side.
Yeah, no, one of my guys this morning was like, 2020's flown by. And I'm like, really, dude? This is not flown by for me.
I feel like I have been beaten every single day.
This has
So,
been terrible.
but here's the scary part is that the payouts for these ransomware attacks continue to rise. So the average one, I think, in the last study I saw was $178,000. The most recent one that just came out said it's 233,817.
Man,
So we've now jumped.
talk about a raise. Dude, and
That's a pretty quick one in just a few months. And the emote attacks, those are spreading like crazy. And even with Microsoft and the Department of Defense, because we have under our Department of Defense cybersecurity sections, they're attacking the trick bot, which is usually comes behind emoted.
Mhm.
But now there's also the bazaar something, like a shopping bazaar kind of thing.
Yeah.
Bazaar loader. And so it's replacing some of that trick bot stuff. And this thing is just going crazy. And then you get the news that May's ransomware gang, which is the one that started last December, saying we're going to start releasing data if you don't pay us. They now announce we're going to shut down.
Mhm.
We're shutting
Yeah.
down. And we've seen this crap before.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It usually means somebody's getting close to them. So they just announce they're going to shut down and they get quiet.
Mhm.
It could also mean that they've made so much freaking money they want to take the holidays off.
Yeah. Or they're gonna
because they just want to go, take the winter off.
they may rebrand.
So the criminals also said they weren't going to attack healthcare, and then 2 days later they attacked healthcare in March, right? So, just hearing that is not promising, but I know that some people will fall for it. Don't.
Yeah. It's almost like, okay, I'm not gonna slap you in the head anymore. And then you just pull your hands down and then
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you being in your little slap fight with your siblings. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And not that I've ever been in one.
Yeah, I'm sure you had. And you're like, okay, I'm done. And as soon as they lower their hand, pow.
Oh, you have no idea. My siblings, especially my sister, who's only 19 months younger, she can tell horror stories. Bless her heart.
I'm
She
sure.
lives. She's still alive.
She lives.
So is my brother. I was, short. I've always been short, but I'm the meanest. And somebody once told my mother, Martha's tall and all that, but Donna's mean. I'd rather fight Martha than Donna. So, that being said, that being known anyway, don't fall for any of this stuff. They're still coming after you. If you haven't gone through with your IT people to say, what are we doing? Can we do more?
Mhm.
And don't take the I got this I will say I got this, but let me show you how I got it. Wouldn't you, David? If you had a client that came to you and said, I've seen all of this, I need you to explain to me what we're doing and can we do more?
Mm-hmm.
You go, don't worry, I got this. I'm the computer person. Don't worry about that.
No, no, because you should always be concerned. Even when you think you're doing everything right, you should still be concerned. You should still be looking at, what am I doing? Am I actually doing what I think I'm doing? Because,
Mhm.
the bigger the organization, the more likely it is that on paper you're doing it right, but then you can find out the technician didn't do something properly, or they turned something off and forgot to turn it back on, or vice versa. I mean, there's all
Yeah.
types of things that can go
Human
wrong.
error.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, we just, in the MSP industry, just this week, every one of our vendors are sending us alerts saying, please review your security stance. Please review your security policies. MSPs are specifically being targeted again. It goes along with everything else we're talking about. We as an
Mhm.
industry are also being specifically targeted, and everybody's saying, make sure you got your crap in order because they're coming after you.
Exactly. So if you're not in healthcare, or if you are in healthcare, either way, and you use a managed service provider, MSSP or an MSP, whatever they want to title themselves as,
Mm-hmm.
you need to be asking them what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you need to call them and ask for that meeting, a
Mm-hmm.
high level meeting. I want to understand, what are we doing? Can we do more? What are you doing to make sure I don't get hit through you?
Right. And you shouldn't be given a bunch of baffling
No.
BS. I mean, if I have
And
to
they
be
should know why you're asking. Because if they have no idea why you're asking, give us a call, because we can give you
yeah,
some advice that we will not give on the air.
right.
Okay.
And they shouldn't be defensive about it. That would be a
No.
big red flag for me. If
Yeah.
if I'm talking to the MSP and asking questions like that and they're getting very defensive about it, I'd be like, whoa, something's wrong.
Yeah. Well, Gary told the story about where they got an alert from their insurer saying you need to make sure you're doing these things because of ransomware. And then they have the meeting with their IT vendor.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I'm this computer engineer. Don't worry about what they're saying. I've got this. And then they get hit, that you don't want those people.
Mm-mm.
So
No.
let's, anyway, now we've got more things to go because we're churning through these things here. We end with 3 more resolutions. 3. So that takes us to 16. So the most they've ever done in a single year, I think, was 14.
Yep.
And so now we're at 16. And as I've said before, in healthcare, it's not about the money. It's about the number of times they're doing it. And we've talked about it over and over and over. It's, they've set a record for 16 actions in a year.
Yeah. And it's not over yet.
Right. So, but keep in mind that we're trying to make sure you're not one of those.
We're trying.
Yeah. And that's important to know because the first one we're going to review is Aetna.
Mm-hmm.
And they got, $1 million resolution agreement with a 2-year cap. And this goes back to 2017, where they reported 3 breaches over 500 and over.
Mm-hmm.
3, 3, 3 breaches.
Yeah. In a fairly short period of time.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I think OCR said they came in between June and November. So that's
Yeah.
less than 6 months that you're making these reports. So that point that we make about when you make a bunch of reports that are not like individual one-off things, they have to do with security problems over and over and over, they will notice. And so theirs was they had a breach on April 27th,
Mm-hmm.
2017. And these are the ones that drive me crazy. 2 web services used to display plan related documents to health plan members allowed documents to be accessed without login credentials, and were indexed by various internet search engines.
It's more about working than it is protecting, Donna. Yeah, we see this all the time when we're dealing with software stuff. It's like, look, if you want your software to work, then you got to get rid of the security. Like, that's not an option, dude. You
Yeah.
got to figure out how this to work inside the security piece.
I know, and I've been working with several software companies lately that are at a variety of startup stages, and the ones that are actually worried about security as they're building it,
Mm-hmm.
it's such a change.
Yeah.
It's refreshing. It's awesome. That is changed in at least the application developers world. It may not have changed in those that are writing the firmware and the devices and all of that, but I'm seeing that change and it's exciting. Now they know they need to do it. They're thinking about it more. They're baking it into the process. They just need to formalize that, and we're teaching them that. But it's absolutely exciting to see that because of exactly what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I turn that off, if you want to be able to do that, oh, there you go. You can do that thing that you wanted to do, but I'm not going to tell you that I also turned off security so that you could.
Yeah. I mean, even in 2020, I still see certain pieces of software where the support people say you have to have everybody have administrative rights to everything in order for this to work.
Oh no, it's organizing. I'm saying the new stuff.
Yeah.
And not all new stuff. I'm just seeing, the folks, but generally, if you're coming to me, you're worried about security anyway. So the second one came in July, and I actually recall this when we were in the middle of a boot camp in July 28th, 2017. They mailed out envelopes, notices to several of their members, and they suddenly then started getting calls because in the window envelope it said HIV medication right below the name and address of the individual.
Yeah. Not good.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was just there for everyone to see. And people were unhappy about this. And that's ongoing in lawsuits. And there's even lawsuits between Aetna and the vendor that did the mailing, I think. So there's that. And then they had the one where a research study mailing sent to plan members contained the name and the logo of the research study in which they were participating on the envelope.
So two different ones having to do with a mailing.
Yeah. Now, granted, these mailings are happening with automated machines and all of that, but somebody's confirming them and checking them, and
Mm-hmm.
clearly not doing a good job.
No. Yeah.
So here's the list of things that they found wrong. They failed to perform a periodic technical and non-technical evaluation in response to environmental or operational changes. And we often mention that people aren't doing that piece. And the cap itself has a long list of what are you going to do here? Have you done this? Have you done that? They failed to implement procedures to verify that a person or entity seeking access to PHI is the one that claimed to be, i.e., the indexing software. I don't know. If you can just check it, then it doesn't matter who's accessing it. We're not looking.
Mm-hmm.
They impermissibly disclosed the PHI of 18,489 individuals in total across the 3 breaches. They failed to limit the PHI disclosed to the reasonable necessary to accomplish the purpose. Minimum necessary. Hello. And they failed to place appropriate administrative, technical, and physical safeguards to protect the privacy of PHI. How about that?
Yeah. That's
Any of that sound familiar?
it sounds like this same ones we normally go through.
I know
Would
it's totally, you know,
you
oh
think
my,
that, if you took any past corrective action plan and said, all right, here's the problems they had. Let's look at it in our organization to see if we have these same issues.
that's why we go through these because that's what we want you to do.
I mean,
You know,
most people would fix a majority of their issues if they just said, okay, where did this go wrong for somebody else? And let's take a look
yeah.
internally.
Anytime I see something in these caps, we go make sure we're taking care of it in all of our systems and with our clients.
Mm-hmm.
And no client is at the spot where they have everything taken care of. It's always in motion. Some are at different points than others. Some are better than others at where they may be, but it's never perfect. And we're constantly evaluating and updating accordingly based on things that happen or new information that comes in. That's called, oh, wait, risk management?
But Donna, HIPAA is so vague, and we don't know what OCR wants because
Yeah. Anyway, we just, anybody that says that, we should just start sending them the resolution agreement, just the cap section,
yeah,
you
it,
know.
it's like
But
here. Yeah.
yeah, here you go. It's right there. Can you? Yeah. Anyway, it's anybody that wants me to say, put antivirus on and then write it down that you put antivirus on and check it once a year. That's what they want. And then when they can't get that, they say it's vague. But we know that. It's
Mm-hmm.
yet the same conversation. Interestingly, the cap is about creating policies and procedures that address all these failures, making sure the whole organization gets them. And they listed all of the different entities within the organization that must get these, understand these, implement them, and be trained on them.
Yep. So
Oh, that was a
as to not
long list.
as to not be vague, right?
Yeah, there you go. It's so vague. Okay, and so that's Aetna. Then the next one is one of your favorite raw spots.
Yeah,
Um,
well,
yeah,
it's so
you,
preventable.
yeah,
Not
yeah,
not that all of them aren't. I used to work
yeah.
for a company, and it was a government entity, but every time something happened, you'd have to go through an internal review, and they would say, "Was this a preventable incident?" And I'm like, "Yes, all of them are. I could have stayed home today, and it wouldn't have happened." But anyway, this is one of those ones that's so preventable,
I
and
know.
it takes no money.
Preach it, brother. Preach it. Yeah.
Anyway.
New Haven Community Health Center in Connecticut apparently doesn't have an effective, or they're about to have an effective employee termination plan. And that's why they're paying $202,400 and a 2-year cap. Now, here's
Mm,
the thing. This one is for all the people who say they don't care about me. I'm so small. If they're hitting public entities, a community health center, they do
mhm,
care and they will enforce. So it's whether or not they find you. That's really your risk, is whether or not they find you. It's
mhm.
what you're doing. If you're not trying to do this, it's when something happens, you will be found.
Yeah, and
You
there's
know,
plenty of people out there that are trying to expose you every single day.
every day. And they don't know you. They don't care. They just
Mhm,
see you as something they can expose.
mhm.
Yeah, there you'll be naked for everybody to see.
But I look at
I
this, and you figure if you take in the cost of whatever the cap's going to end up being, I don't know, let's
Mhm.
be conservative. Let's say it's $500,000 after it's all said and done with the
Yeah.
202,000 in the cap. I'm like, $500,000. Do you know how much protection I could have provided
Oh,
you
and that
for
doesn't
that?
count what's happened since this happened.
I know, all because you didn't have a way
Yeah.
to properly terminate an employee out of the systems. It's
Right.
like,
So on July 27th, 2016. So this again is going back. And I would like to point out to the people that go out to see how many open investigations on the breach portal, it shows you the last 24 months, which means prior to this being announced, this wouldn't have been on there.
Right.
Now it shouldn't be, but I'm just saying. So a former employee returns to the health department 8 days, 8 days
Hmm.
after being terminated, logged into their old computer with the still active username and password,
How
downloaded. I know,
how did you have access to it?
I
Like,
know.
where's the
There's so
physical
many
section?
layers.
This
There's
blows
so
my
many
mind.
layers.
It's
It's like physical security, administrative security, technical security, all not done.
yeah.
All this is so preventable. It's not like they hacked anything. It's not like they came in remotely. It's not like they did it right before they left.
Yeah.
8 days later, just waltzed in, sat down at their desk, and started typing.
Susie, you know me. I got to get my pictures off there. My kids. Come on, let me do it.
They downloaded PHI, including patient names, addresses, dates of birth, ethnicity, gender, sexually transmitted disease test results onto a USB drive. So they walked in, stuck, and you're right. They probably said, "Oh, I got to get my kids' pictures. They shouldn't be on there." And if they are, gone. Bye.
Yeah.
Additionally, OCR found that the former employee shared the user ID and password with an intern who continued to use the login credentials until it was eventually terminated.
Hey, I shouldn't laugh. And it's not because it's funny. It's
No.
painful. It's like I laugh because it's painful. Because I
Yeah.
know there's some of you out there is like, why are you laughing? It's not funny. I
It's
can't deal with it.
painful. I mean, it's at some point you just start laughing. You have nothing else to do. You have reached the point where all of the reasoning in your brain just has to shut off because it makes no sense. It
Mhm.
must be comedy.
It's
So
the same reason Donna laughs at a funeral. It's just so inappropriate, and she does it anyway.
there you go. Yeah. I always laugh when somebody falls down, and I just tell people, if you fall down doing that, I will be laughing while I try to get you up. But
I was going to say, when I was younger, I would laugh after I knew they were okay. Now I just laugh as I'm making sure they're okay.
I know. I don't have to have any restraint.
I guess maybe in another 10 years, I'll probably be laughing regardless of if they're okay.
All right. So here's the thing. Let's see how many things went wrong here. They didn't terminate the credentials. They didn't, first, sharing of username and password with the intern. They didn't terminate the credentials. They allowed the employee back in. They allowed the employee to put the USB stick into their network from who knows where and download the patient data and walk out with nothing happening. And so, Severino says, oh, here's your quote. I didn't get the quote we did get the quote for, well, you can do the quote for Aetna and the quote for New Haven because these are like, your official parts.
My official parts. Okay.
Yeah.
So, so this one here is from Roger Severino. So Roger says medical providers need to know who in their organizations can access patient data at all times. When someone's employment ends, so must their access to patient record. I mean, I'm surprised he didn't. I'm surprised he didn't say, why do I even have to say this?
I can't believe I'm making this statement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do I have to say this?
You want to go ahead and hit the Aetna one, and then we'll go into the cap real quick because we're running out of time. Hit the Aetna one.
So the Aetna one, he said, when individuals contract for health insurance, they expect plans to keep their medical information safe from public exposure. Unfortunately, Aetna's failure to follow the HIPAA rules resulted in 3 breaches in a 6-month period, leading to this $1 million settlement. And I think he even had his little pinky up to his mouth when he said that.
All right.
I just picture him doing that.
Yeah. So obviously we've gone through all the things that went wrong. The investigation, obviously and I'd like to point out, this is less than 500. It's 498 individuals, which I find suspect.
I was going to say, yeah, that makes me go,
Yeah, things that make you say, but it was 498 individuals, and from December 1st, 2014 to December 31st, 2018, they failed to implement privacy rule policies and procedures. So basically, not a lot of anything HIPAA-wise happening between when they should have started, I guess, and uh, when they started dealing with this investigation.
Mm-hmm.
They failed to conduct accurate and thorough assessment of the potential risk and vulnerabilities. We know that one. And during that same period, they failed to implement procedures for terminating access when the employment of or other arrangement with a workforce member ends. And they failed to assign a unique username and password identifying and tracking user identities. But these are all, the sharing thing, all of this. Uh, and it's like that new detail about the risk analysis that's in the cap about making sure it's all the equipment, the data systems, the applications controlled, and incorporate that, blah, 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 supporting a review of current security measures and levels of risk, yada, yada, yada. And they shall review and revise as necessary written policies and procedures to comply with the federal standards for the privacy rule, the security rule, the breach notification rule. I mean, they're hitting all of them. So clearly they didn't really have much of a program at all.
Right.
So their 2-year crash course in building a compliance program, again, that's what we tell our clients is, 2 years, we can have you really solid. This 2 years is way more stressful than working with us.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So there you have it. That is New Haven. And then we wake up this morning just in time for us to record about the 10th right of access.
Yeah. I
So
think
in their
Roger was
initiative.
like, "Oh, I know they recorded about 9:30. We got to get this thing out." So thanks, Raj. Appreciate it.
Jeez. So this one is a $25,000, also a corrective action plan that covers the whole privacy, security, everything. Riverside Psychiatric Medical Group in California.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a section under the access to medical records that psychotherapy notes aren't uh, aren't required to be released. There's a lot about that in psychotherapy, and that matters uh, for many reasons. And here's the thing, though: everything else is. The entire record is not psychotherapy notes. So, March 2019, ironically, these people just fell into a perfect spot. He had just announced that we're going to start this initiative, and that probably landed right in their lap at that time. And this is a patient complaint. Hello, patient complaint.
Mm-hmm.
Patient alleges that they failed to provide her a copy of her medical records despite multiple attempts beginning in February 2019. So reports it in March. And of course, OCR does what their technical assistance means is we notify you and tell you what you should be doing. And if you say yes, we're going to trust that you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it means when it's technical assistance. Okay. They're trusting that you're going to do it. They notify you what you've done wrong and what you need to do. And then you tell them you're handling it. And they're like, okay. That's essentially how that works.
However,
Yeah. If they have to come back, they find out you haven't done it. Because then the patient gives a second complaint in April
mm-hmm.
saying they still hadn't gotten their stuff. So what had happened was, OCR's after the whole thing, and it's at that point they're like, look, here we come. We're going to start getting into here and looking at it. Well, turns out they claimed that because the record included psychotherapy notes, they did not have to comply with the request, even though they said, we get it, we're going to reply. Yeah. So then they make clear in the announcement that they do not require psychotherapy notes, but they do require the covered entities to, number one, provide requester a written explanation when it denies any record request in whole or in part. They didn't do that.
Mhm.
And number two, to provide the individual access to his or her medical records other than the notes. Information, obviously you can leave out stuff that's in there if you're in a lawsuit or whatever, but psychotherapy notes that those are the exceptions, but you should have given them everything else. And you should have told them why you weren't giving them anything. So instead of just nothing.
Mhm.
So, interestingly enough, in October, they finally got their records. The patient did everything they're supposed to get, sans psychotherapy note.
Wow.
So, and Roger's getting fed up. Basically, none of this, being, let me be clear in some legalese. This one's just plating, bam, mic drop.
Yep. So,
Tell them.
so Roger says, when patients request copies of their health records, they must be given in a timely response, not the runaround.
I'm done.
Yeah, it's interesting. It seems like his responses are getting shorter and shorter.
Yeah.
it's
Again,
kinda,
like you said, I can't believe I'm having to say this.
yeah,
Now it's the same thing.
here we go again. Why can't you get it? But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, for them to make this an initiative, it had to be a big problem.
It
So,
clearly is.
yeah,
If they've been able to find so many, I mean, some of these are, it takes a year.
yeah, crazy.
Yeah. So, and of course, the cap's all about having policies and procedures being done and training and all those things. All of these folks better get in line because all it's going to take is one more call, and it's just not going to be pretty.
Mhm.
So, if you've had a patient complaint, then you better be double checking, triple checking, all those kind of things. If you've been notified and you've taken the technical assistance, you better make sure you're getting your act in gear because you got that one going on. If that patient calls back again, they're going to be coming in.
Mhm. And this is,
If you are fortunate enough not to have had that, go audit everything right now
yeah.
so that you're never in the loop.
And this is one of those things. Imagine you're a healthcare provider. You've got your stuff down. You've got the policies and procedures. You've done your assessments and your action plans and your incident response plans and your MSPs top notch and your BAs are top notch and your BAAs are in play. You got all this going for you. And then somebody doesn't give medical records in a timely manner. I mean, come on. Come on, man.
Come on, man. Oh, maybe we need to have another section. Come on, man.
Yeah, I have to
Yeah,
find
I
that
wonder,
for
wonder
an
if
audio.
ESPN is trademark that. I doubt you could trademark. Come on, man. But we will, have to add that. But clearly, these three, I mean, it's coming, and here we are in November. I think we're still going to see several more
Oh yeah.
coming out because the there's a lot going on, and we're actively under attack, and people aren't paying attention, and they know it
Mm-hmm.
to what they should be doing. And this is about just doing what you should be doing. If you're doing what you should be doing and not HIPAA 1.0, where you did some paperwork, maybe
Mm-hmm.
it's doing what you should be doing, then you would be, you're again the one that's running faster than the other guy running from the bear.
Yeah. I mean, really, if you're even trying to get it done,
Yeah.
just be trying.
Yeah.
You're going to be, you probably cut 60 to 80% of the problem out if you just try.
Yeah.
Like I always say, done is better than perfect. So get something done.
Yeah, perfect is the enemy of done. That's what I've heard before. And that is something that we have to keep in mind when we're doing this, is that I'm reviewing something yesterday and they send me their improvement plan, and nowhere in their improvement plan does it mention privacy and security, but they think it does.
Oh, that should be interesting.
Yeah. They also thought that their OSHA safety plan was their disaster recovery plan. So I'm working with them.
Who knows? I mean, all you can do is educate.
All you can do is just gently. No.
I don't know. Pushing people is pretty good too, especially if they're on the edge.
Hey, look, OCR is doing that, right?
Yeah. So I think what we'll do is we'll start taking clients up for skydiving. We're going to write HIPAA on the parachute. This is the only thing that's going to save you. Privacy and security program.
Small. If you look at what's recommended for businesses that aren't in healthcare, the only parts that they don't have to do with the privacy of patient information, that narrowing it down, which you still want to keep your information locked down for your business. And they, don't require business associate agreements.
Right.
But everything else that's under there stuff anybody should be doing. So get in line, people. Get in line.
Yeah. And if we ever have, one of these national mandates for data protection and privacy stuff, it's going to, it's going to be HIPAA for everybody, as we once said in a episode. All right. That's our show for today, folks. Thanks for sticking around and hearing about all the good news of enforcement ransomware and so much more. Remember to follow us and share us out on your favorite social media site and rate our podcasting out. Leave a review because we love the reviews. And we love the reviews. Anyway, as always, if you have any other questions or ideas about the show, you can share those with us as well. And remember, for Donna and myself, the HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.